Hi, my name is Elizabeth Harding Weinstein, and we're doing a live broadcast with Dottie Freiner. I am with CPS News Network, and we are here to talk to you guys about the corruption and the implicit uh, courts and lawyers who are currently trafficking our children to pedophiles and abusers at an alarming rate across the country and around the world, fortunately. And so Dottie and I connected, and we are here to try and tell you our stories and some similarities in the ways that you can see that the courts are being used completely as a weapon against its own people. That what we're talking about, really, when we're talking about our courts, is domestic terrorism.
Mm.
And we'd like to show you evidence and talk to you about our specific cases. And we ask that you just be a little understanding. Neither of us are professionals with this. We are real, true, authentic people who have had our children trafficked to pedophiles and are being punished by the courts for standing up and protecting their children. So I don't have any fancy news, lights and bells and whistles to put up. My camera's a little off, lighting's off. Deal with us. Try and get to the authenticity and discernment and hear the facts that we're trying to talk to you guys about. And we hope that you will reach out to us, either of us, should we be able to help you in any way. But our main goal is to try and get our stories out there so people can hear how commonplace this is, and we can unify and try and organize a resistance against this domestic violence and domestic terrorism that's being propagated against parents across our country by our own government. So, Dottie, why don't you give a little feedback about your case right now?
Well, my case is, the typical playbook of the family court where they pick one side and they run with it. They knew from the beginning of my case, you could tell that there was nothing I could do. I wasn't going to win my case. It's still that point today. I still have trial coming up, and her father is already talking as if he has won the case and sending out emails to like the school and doing all this stuff, telling them that he's got sole custody.
Can we just, okay.
Mhm.
So when I say tell me a little bit about your case, I'm a mother. My 14-year-old daughter was trafficked by the court to her abuser after she disclosed sexual abuse by the man. The court mandated that I produce my daughter or they were going to put me in jail. We unfortunately complied because we were scared and didn't know what to do. And unfortunately, not only did they take my daughter, traffic her to her abuser, they still put me in jail. They put my daughter in the hospital where I was not allowed to help protect her. They drugged her because she was not going with her abuser willingly. And then when she was kidnapped, trafficked, drugged, they then transported her across state lines to her abuser. Is that a summary of your case?
Yeah.
Okay. So part of what we're trying to help people figure out here is that as parents who have had their children trafficked, we live in a state of trauma, and we're trying to get out of our trauma and get our stories in a digestible way for people to see and hear what's happening. Now, the one word that you used for me, which really resonated, was playbook.
Yeah.
This is a playbook by our courts. Okay. This is a playbook by pedophiles. This is a playbook by the judiciary to traffic children to the abuser and punish the protective parent for speaking out. Now, what's unique, and unfortunately not unique, that's a wrong word. What's similar between Dottie and I's story and my story is the force by which the courts have egregiously uh, descended upon us and punished us. And correct me if I'm wrong, I personally don't have any criminal history whatsoever. I'm a stay-at-home mom, 17 and a half years, a Columbia University graduate. The only interaction that I've ever had with the courts is once my husband, who Brian Stryker Weinstein is the pedophile, he started using the courts as a weapon against me. But for 48 years of my life, no interaction, no significant interaction, traffic ticket, like pulled over, like stuff like that, maybe. but no interaction with the courts or police my entire life until they were used as a weapon to traffic my children. Is that similar to you?
Oh, exactly. I've never been in trouble. I actually was a process server. I worked for the courts for 20 years. So I have no criminal history of any sorts. I don't have any drug history or, because they try that. That's another one of their playbook plays is drug abuse, nothing, no history there. But yet they're still using everything they have against me.
Yes. Yeah. So in both of our cases, so in Dottie's case, and why don't you take us through a little bit of start in January as to what happened when so you had sole custody of your daughter. The court then trafficked her to live with her father for a few months. And correct me if I'm wrong about this. She came back in December for Christmas, and at that time said, "I'm not going back." And then that's when the court really went up and had criminal coercion and threatened you with jail if your daughter didn't comply with her abuse. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
So take us through starting in January if you can.
So in January,
can you? Sorry to interrupt. Can you name the judge? And
Judge Zellweger.
Judge, and do you know their first name?
Nicole Zellweger was the judge.
And she is in
St. Louis County.
St. Louis County.
Yeah.
And she was one of the judges that were involved in the Cash for Kids. Is that correct?
Yes, she's in the same circuit.
Okay, great.
All the judges, yeah.
Okay. So continue.
So when my daughter wouldn't go back with her dad, they started threatening jail time. So when I took her into the court that day, they were telling us, because I complied to bring her into the courtroom to give her back to her dad. She just wouldn't go. On that day,
coerced to comply. Is that correct? So what happened is they originally ordered her to come in, and again, she's 14, so she's of age. So they ordered her to go live with her father. She said, "No, he's abusing me." And then they said, "If you don't go live with her father, we're going to arrest your mother." Right? And they put what was it that you said that they assigned to you?
A body attachment. They were getting a body attachment placed on it where they could come through the door and just take us.
Right. So they issued that in the end of January, said if you don't produce her in court, and then they had the father fly from out of state and say, "At this moment, you have to bring your daughter here. You have to bring her to court. I'm going to make the father come to court here, and then he's going to leave with her. And if you don't comply with this, we're going to put you in jail." Right? And we're going to issue a body attachment. So that was issued to you at the end of January. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then you were made to comply in February.
Yes.
Which she originally said no, right?
Yeah, she didn't want to go. The first day we were supposed to go, she didn't go. She refused to go. It was a little bit of convincing when they rescheduled it because they were telling us about the body attachment come in, and so I was forced to take her in there. I had no other choice.
So the first court date that they gave you and said, "We're going to arrest you if you don't show up by this date," she actually didn't comply and you didn't get arrested, but then they just intensified the coercion on you.
Yes.
So then the second day, which was what date now?
February 10th is when I took her in.
Okay, so February 10th, you went in with her, and then they trafficked her to the father, but then they also still arrested you. Is that correct?
Right. I was taken under criminal contempt. The court moved on its own motion. No, it wasn't the opposing party's motion. It was the court's own motion for a criminal contempt. And they went ahead and had the criminal contempt hearing without, I didn't have any representation, nothing. And they took me out and arrested me.
So there was a on the spot criminal contempt hearing?
Yes. Yes.
So we're going to hold you in contempt, and we're going to have the full hearing now. And we found you guilty, and away you go.
Yeah.
I mean, does everybody
know
what's happening here?
Right. And then the judge assigned an attorney to me while I was in jail.
Once you were in prison.
Yeah, after I was already put in jail. Then they gave me an attorney for what reason, I'm not sure.
Right. And, the interesting part, the transparent part for anybody who's watching this. So what was happening was the daughter was refusing to go with her abuser. And so they were going to put the daughter in a mental hospital, which they did.
They did do that, yes.
To get her to be either compliant or at least debilitated enough that they could then traffic her without her fighting so hard. And so they needed to put Dottie in prison so she couldn't help protect her daughter while they were this judge was falsely committing her. Do you see how sick this is? To understand the level of sociopath dealing with. There's no lawful practice here. There's no lawful practice, right? I mean, this is disgusting. This is horrific. So they brought your daughter to a psychiatric unit, and you were in jail. And how long were you there for?
I was on a 48-hour hold the first time she arrested me. So after 48 hours, I got out and was able to speak with my daughter from the hospital.
Okay. And what did they say?
I was not allowed to see her. They kept her that I could only communicate through phone, that the hospital wasn't going to allow me to see her. So at that point, she was gone. There was no protecting her, no way to save her. They had her locked away in the hospital. I went down there, but I couldn't get past like security. So they had taken her from me and cut me off at that court date. That was the last time I seen her.
I mean, everybody, I know that the audience that's on here understands this, but everybody really needs to absorb this level of inhumanity, the level of lawlessness. This is straight up kidnapping, okay? This is trafficking our children. And just because somebody has the title judge, they're allowed to get away with it. And because we have this issue of judicial immunity, we have no recourse. Our only recourse is through the court of public opinion, letting people know the truth, and then really dissolving this complete system of fraud, which is what this is. This is just a system where they legally commit crimes and we can't do anything about it because the person that signs it has judge in front of their names. Okay? None of this shows, obviously, the best interest of the child. We all know that they use that bullshit subjective term so that they can adjust it for whatever they need. Okay? But a 14-year-old daughter who's disclosing abuse, who has free will, who is saying that they should not be forced, they can't be court ordered, but they were court ordered to be sexually abused by somebody. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. And when people like Dottie or people like me keep fighting back, then the court punishes us more. So then tell us about the email that you then wrote to the court, Dottie.
So then I emailed the judge and told her there would be conduct for her consequences. She had stepped out of line for any kind of immunity.
There'd be consequences for her conduct. You
yes.
said conduct for her conduct. There'd be consequences. So you wrote a letter to the judge, and did you copy the other side?
What do you mean?
Meaning, was this an email to the judge?
Yes.
Okay, and this was sent. So it wasn't like.
Well, the other side. I don't remember if I added them to him or not, or if this was one where it was just me sending it to the judge.
Okay, and so this wasn't filed on record. Did you ever ask for it to be filed, just out of curiosity?
No, this wasn't. She had already removed herself.
She had removed herself from the case at this point?
Yes.
And you wrote an email that said that there will be consequences for her conduct because she was acting outside of the color of law.
Right.
Okay. And then what happened after
that? What was it?
And what date was that?
That was on March 5th, because that was the day they moved my daughter. I emailed her the day the hospital called me and told me that they were moving my daughter, that they had to move quickly, that she didn't even know she was leaving, that she didn't know that her uncle had come to town to take her, that they had to do this real quick. They had to move fast, and he wouldn't let me speak with my daughter or see her. And then boom, she was gone. That was it.
And then you were walking outside your house, and what happened?
So that was the 5th. On the 8th, I left out to go to the country for the weekend. And when I stepped out of my house, I was jumped by all these police and kidnapped, and just taken. They didn't have a warrant. They wouldn't tell me what I was being arrested for. Nobody had their badges on, like name badges or anything. So I don't know who any of the officers were at that time. And then they put me in jail. They locked me up.
And at what
Judy,
point did they tell you that the charges that they were locking you up for were due to that email that you sent to the judge?
oh, it was later. It was later on. Finally, like a detective come in to talk to me, and that's how I found out that it was over that email to the judge. But up to that point, I had no clue why I was there. They wouldn't tell me anything.
And what were the criminal charges that they were running against you?
Tampering with the judicial officer.
Tampering with a judicial officer for saying lawfully
There be
and
consequences.
truthfully that there are consequences when a judge acts outside the color of law. And they come and arrest you. Do you understand?
Well, they didn't arrest me. They kidnapped me.
They kidnapped you. They kidnapped you. Okay. So this is where Dottie and my story is similar. I had my children trafficked to a pedophile while he was missing and under a pedophilia investigation in June. It was on June 5th of 2020. And I had teenage children who also refused to go with him. Refused. Okay. And I had two officers. This is in Briarcliff Manor, New York. You might want to look into Briarcliff Manor. Briarcliff Manor is where the Rockefellers live. It's where the Clintons live next door in Chappaqua. Trump has a place there. And the Briarcliff Manor police are corrupt as all get up. And if you look up Briarcliff Manor police murders over charges, you will find that one of their officers just killed 4 people and buried them in his yard over a drug deal gone bad. Okay, he was involved with this illicit drug deal, which I believe many of our police officers in Briarcliff are. So he goes to jail. Guess who his jailmate is? Epstein. So we're talking about the real heart of all of this issue that's going on in our world today. Okay, is happening right now. It's unfolding in front of our eyes. And it's happening in towns like Dottie's and in towns like mine, where they're using this COVID bullshit to distract us all, sleight of hand, so that they can then traffic children, pedophiles, and abusers at an alarming rate over here. Okay. And it's not that our stories are new, and it's not that they're unique. That's what's awful about it. This has been going on for decades. But because they're distracting us with COVID, they're distracting us with the election fraud, they're distracting us with these other issues, they can then traffic our children. This is all about the willful trafficking of our children and having the state have more power over our children than the parents. All right. This is the use of the police and the courts as a militia against people, against men and women, to take our children away from us. And I know that might sound extreme when it comes out in that sentence, but that's all the evidence suggests. And ignoring the evidence isn't actually going to help us get through this problem faster. So like Dottie, I fought back in the courts and I started filing motions to try and see my children again. And I filed immediately for divorce for my husband, and the judiciary kept punishing me. They kept issuing new orders against me, new orders of protection. I've never, 18 months, I've never been close to 18 months now, that since June 5th of 2020, I've never been allowed access to the court to be heard. I have no prior history. I have no criminal history. I've never been found guilty of anything, nor has there even been, for the past 4 or 5 orders, any petition to court to get the orders. The courts are doing this sua sponte on their own. This is the judge taking actions to punish us. And I, like Dottie, have been put in prison. I was falsely imprisoned for not wearing a mask when I went to go file court documents one day on June 4th. Okay. They locked me away in solitary confinement. They denied me access to a lawyer. They denied me a phone call. They denied me the time out of my cell. So like when you're in solitary confinement, there are laws that say that you're supposed to be let out for an hour. They didn't let me. Okay. Columbia University graduate, mom of 3, 17 and a half years, stay-at-home parent. Next thing I know, I'm being locked away in solitary confinement with no access to a lawyer, no access to phone my family or anybody to let them know where I am, no access to food, no access to even communicate. They wouldn't give me a piece of paper or a pencil. They said because I was on suicide watch. So these are things that you guys need to be aware of, that it's happening going on right now in our world right now. Like, this isn't a draconian Orwellian, we're heading towards there in 50 years. This is now, right now. Judges have omnipotent power, and they are using and abusing it. Unless we, the people, stand up and take our power and realize these guys are our employees. They're our employees. We are paying our employees to traffic our children and commit crimes against us. So I was also placed in prison. I was never allowed access to the court. Even when I get out, I filed a federal lawsuit against the judge. That judge then had me kidnapped. Same thing. No charges, no warrant, no exigent circumstances. Police kidnapped me, had me in prison with no criminal charges, and then had me trafficked to a psychiatric facility where, by judicial order, they committed me and said that I was incompetent. Which, okay, you can claim that I'm incompetent, but the only means by which one is supposed to be able to take control over you through our mental health hygiene laws are if you are a threat to yourself or a threat to others. They have to have clear and convincing evidence of that. That wasn't the case. Just judicial order, judicial order. So we are living in a tyrannical time, guys, where the judges, whatever the judge write on a piece of paper,
That's crazy.
that takes precedence over the law. That takes precedence over lawful practice. That takes precedence over your constitutional rights to even to your own freedoms, to the care and custody of your children. They are they're switching some tenets of justice, right? So you are now guilty until proven innocent. Prove to me, Dottie, that so they gave you, tell people what their bail was. I thought that was awesome.
Oh, it was a $75,000 only, cash only bond.
$75,000, guys, cash only. Could you come up with that?
No, that's no.
Right? I mean, this is insane. So for me, I was being held on misdemeanor charges. Misdemeanor charges don't require bail. So why wasn't I let out? It's crazy. So you have to understand the level of tyranny that we're talking about that's happening right now. And it's not specific to Broward County, New York, where I believe is the heart of evil and the heart of darkness. Brian Stryker Weinstein committing atrocious humanitarian crimes against children. And, he's a law partner. So he's laying case law in his other cases that help to desecrate our financial markets, right? He was a part of the 2008 mortgage-backed securities crisis. Brian defended the banks. So when the banks defrauded you and were able to, take your home, my husband defended the banks to make sure that they were allowed to do that and get away with it. So where do we go from here, right? So I've not been able to see my children directly since June 5th, 2020.
Wow.
Okay.
Time.
June 5th. Dottie, you have not seen your children, your daughters, when?
February 10th in the courtroom that day. I haven't seen her
February
since. Yeah.
Okay. This isn't lawful, guys. This is not constitutional. What's happening right now at an alarming rate, it's a hostage takeover of our humanity. Mm-hmm. And I think people can find evidence themselves that this is a spiritual war. These people have sold their soul to the devil, and the devil is doing his work through them to help traffic our children to pedophiles and abusers. And until we start calling all of these cases to light and showing the evidence of how the judges are acting outside of lawful practice, and then fully tackle the issue of judicial immunity, which is what actually gives the judges their power. And it's us that bestow the power to them, right? I mean, we've allowed for our judges to have, they're supposed to have qualified immunity, and instead they're taking absolute immunity, right? So right now, give us an update. She was placed in a mental hospital. An uncle came from out of town, right? And took her to the mental hospital and trafficked her back to her abuser.
No, she went to Arizona first.
Oh, right. Sorry.
And then from there, she went to Wyoming to a boarding school for troubled teens, which is under investigation for a class action for trafficking and labor of children.
And do you know the name of that boarding school, please?
Yeah, that's Trinity Teen Solution. They say she's not there, that she's went back to Montana, but I haven't spoke to her, so I don't know 100% where she is.
Okay, and let's be clear, Montana is where her father lives.
Father lives, yes.
Okay, and Arizona was arbitrarily decided on. Can you give us some context as to why she went?
Uncle, the third party that picked her up from the hospital, lives in Arizona.
Okay.
So she went back to Arizona with him, from there to Wyoming, and supposedly Wyoming to Montana.
And you have contacted the courts and requested that they tell you where your daughter is, right? And where has that gone?
Well, I actually had a court date, a hearing that I was in court at the end of July, and I brought this to the judge's attention that I hadn't spoken with her. They wouldn't give me signs of life, that I would like to know where my daughter is. And he told me he didn't know where she was, that we could deal with this in November when we set for trial.
That's the judge that said that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the criminal charges that were brought against you, that was, so the criminal charges for writing a true and accurate email to the judge that there are consequences for their actions when judges act outside the bounds of law. And
yes.
The judge then brought charges against you, and that those charges were again?
Tampering with a judicial officer. It's got up to 7 years, potentially up to 7 years.
Is it a felony?
Yes, it's a felony. That was set for trial in April of next year. They did a grand jury indictment. It come back with a true bill. So I've officially been charged with these charges and have trial.
And I'm not familiar with how the grand jury indictment works. Were you present?
No.
During that? Okay. So
I didn't know that this was going on. I didn't know I was indicted. I found out from the uncle in Arizona that I had been indicted.
The other one that helped traffic your daughter to?
Yeah, because he sent me some rude text message about it, and that's how I found out I had been indicted.
So this is her father's, your ex?
My daughter's father's brother's brother. Yes.
Yes, brother. Okay.
Yes.
And so he just contacted you and said, by the way, you've been indicted, but you weren't informed of the process. You weren't served. There was nothing.
Nothing. No.
I mean, it's complete lawlessness, you guys. It's complete lawlessness. And we need to take our power back from these people. These people are criminals. Okay. When you call them honorable, you are making a decision in your mind where you're creating cognitive dissonance, where your thoughts and your words and your actions don't align. And when your thoughts and your words and your actions don't align, it makes you more easily manipulated. Okay? So don't refer to them as honorable. Just call them Mr. You're not honorable. There's nothing that they're doing here that's honorable. Okay. We need to have integrity with our words, with our thoughts, and with actions in order to snap out of these matrices and to be fully aligned with lawful practice. And I mean, I'm just like, I have no words sometimes for, like, it's funny. It's actually just funny. It's like, just, right. So same thing in my case. The judge, I filed a federal lawsuit against the judge, and then the defendant judge, he's a defendant in my federal case, has me kidnapped and says, I'm committed to you. And I'm like, I'm declaring you incompetent. I'm like, well, I'm not incompetent, and you have to have a trial. No trial, no hearing. I'm just a judicial order, and I'm gonna say. And the funny thing about mine is this guy is a municipal judge. This guy is a firefighter 4 days a week, and then 1 day a week comes in and writes traffic tickets, like adjudicates on the traffic tickets. And that's the guy that's kidnapped my children, trafficked me away from my home. I've never been allowed access to my home, even to get my belongings. I can't see my dog. Okay, I mean, this is insane, guys. This is stupid. Why are we giving our employees so much power? The power is ours. The power is ours. We're bestowing power to our employees, and we are allowing, not only are we allowing, but we are paying our employees to commit crimes against us. We're paying them to traffic our children. We're paying them to seize our assets. our home, all of our legal documents. And then, so they filed a federal law. I filed a federal lawsuit against them. The defendant judge in my case had me jailed with no criminal charges. He said, I'm getting rid of all the criminal charges because I'm declaring you incompetent. And I was like, well, I don't want you to get rid of the charges because you know I'm suing you for malicious prosecution. And then he said, too bad, now I'm sending you back to jail. And I'm like, Judge Code, you look like a moron. Everybody knows that when somebody's incompetent, you don't put them in jail. So what are you doing? But it was all about coercion. It's coercion, it's coercion, it's coercion. So one of the things that Dottie and I wanted people to hear was how they coerced us, right? So for me, my coercion started when the officer, William Bassett and John Raphael on June 5th, 2020, said to my children, if you don't go with your father, we will arrest your mother for kidnapping. That's not true. My children are of age, but I didn't know that that was not true. And so I complied. Worst moment of my life. I've had some pretty bad ones. So fun. Okay. Same thing with Dottie.
That day, taking her in that courtroom.
If you don't bring your daughter in, we're going to arrest you. Okay. She complied. She brought her daughter in. They arrested her anyway.
Worst thing I did.
We are complying with our own abuse. We are complying with our own trafficking of our children. And we need to stop the compliance. We need to educate others so they see the tricks, so they see the manipulation, so they understand what's happening. And they can stop it. Okay? Don't let the police on your property. I didn't let the police in my house. My pedophile husband, Brian Stryker Weinstein, sent people like Bridget Dale, Carla Savoni, Eric Castillo, and the wretched Laura Warnier to our house to let me think that they were there to help me and then to let the police in, right? So when the police captured Dottie, did you ask for the warrant? See, I didn't even know in the times that they falsely arrested me, I demand that they produce the warrant. Did you ever demand?
They didn't have one. I asked, they wouldn't,
yeah,
there was nothing. Nothing I said or could have done would have changed anything. They were there to do what they were there to do, and that was to take me.
Right. So listen, stay with us, guys. Follow our stories right now. Dottie, I brought my cases up through the U.S. Supreme Court. You can go and look at case 21-14. That was for the false arrest and false imprisonment. They held that case for 4 months, and then they just denied it. That was a writ of cert. So you don't have a right to go to the U.S. Supreme Court to hear your case. You have to ask permission for them to hear your case, right? So that was a writ of cert. Then I have ex parte, ex post facto orders of protection written against me. Ex parte means one side, and they're not even ex parte, they're sua sponte. So there was no petition from my husband or no hearing for which to issue these orders. The judge just issued them on their own orders and backdated them 4 months and then arrested me for offenses that occurred when there was no order of protection, right? It's all criminal, all illegal, and ex post facto orders are unconstitutional under Article 1 of our Constitution, right? Because they deny you notice. And so the denial of notice is a complete and utter denial of due process. And so therefore it's not lawful, okay? So I have these orders issued against me. So I took that up through the federal courts, through the federal appellate court.
Oh, I can't hear you. Did you lose your audio?
Guess that, yep.
There you go.
There you go. Now you got me back.
Yeah.
So I have a writ of injunction, which is the 21A29 case up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, when you file for a writ of injunction, that is a writ as of right. So they have to respond, okay? They can either deny it or they grant it, but they can't say, no, we're not even going to look at it, okay? They are actually going to hear, they have to decide on the merits of your case. So that had to go to the justice under which the justice who oversees my circuit. For me, it's Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Okay, she's the Supreme Court justice who oversees the circuit justice for the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So I brought that to her. She also had a long time, and then that was just denied. So under writ of injunction, once the injunction is denied by one judge, you can then submit to any other judge of your choosing. And I just resubmitted that now to Justice Clarence Thomas. That was filed with the Supreme Court on October 10th. Now, mind you, this is an injunction for orders of protection that are ex parte, ex post facto orders. So on their face, they're illegal. So I have illegal and unlawful orders issued against me. What right does the court have to deny me that relief, to have these orders vacated, to have even a stay placed on these orders? It just goes to show you that the corruption runs all the way up through our courts, all the way up through the Supreme Court of the United States, which arguably is the most powerful court in the world, right? So if that's the case, we have to face head on that we are dealing with a complete and utter desecration of our judicial system, that this is a system of fraud through and through. And we need to attack it. And we can. And we will. So stay tuned. Stay on top of my story. You can find me on lizziesarmy.com. I'm sorry for the people if you're writing comments. I'm not good about, like I said, not a professional, not good about managing the comments, looking for questions. But I'd like to give out my direct contact information. And please contact me here. You can get me at 646-261-7685. That's 646-261-7685. And you can get Dottie. I will try and post more information on here about how to reach Dottie, but you can look her up she is on Facebook and she is on Instagram. For me, they took down both of my profiles once I started putting that Scott Harris, the clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court, had tampered with my file, changed the filing dates, changed the rules under which I filed, tampered with it, was destroying the documents, not posting the evidence. You'll see when you go on the U.S. Supreme Court docket search, you'll find that you can find my affidavits and my petitions, but you aren't able to get access to the appendices. And the appendices are where all of the actual evidence is. So thank you. Thank you, Danny, for putting that up. I appreciate that. And stay tuned with us, guys. It's going to be a rough go of it, but we're going to get the truth out there to people. And the more we reveal the truth, the more we can start holding these people accountable. And let's not make false accusations. I can't be responsible for putting these people in jail, right? That requires much more participation than just me. That requires the complicit lawful practice of our judiciary in order to help hold these people accountable by putting them in jail. But what I can do is make their true reputations known. And we can call out these people's humanity. We are dealing with a sick and sadistic spiritual war right now. And we need to understand that this is a hostage takeover of our humanity, but they're using humans to commit the crimes against other humans. And I, for one, believe that we can still call humanity forward. And we can defeat this enemy, but we have to defeat it from within. So, can't get there unless we start from a position of integrity and truth and show these people's actions for what they really are. These judges are not honorable. They're criminals. They're our most hardened, despicable criminals because they use and abuse the public trust in order to commit their crimes. We're holding them accountable. So I'm grateful for you guys for staying connected. Thank you to the other warriors who are out there fighting this fight. And please get in contact with me if I can help you in any way. We can highlight your stories. I'm sorry that Dottie just got disconnected there. I'm not sure why that happened. Reach me at lizziesarmy.com, 646-261-7685, or you can find me at Liz Harding, LizHarding, Liz Harding, the number 1 at mac.com. Thanks for staying connected, guys. Good luck.